Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasudhanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jai Raja Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Raja Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribhāja Jagacharya Sata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam To Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavadina Ishtaki Idam Bhagavatam Purana Brahma Samitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chatara Bhagavan Rashi Nishkayasaya Lokasya Dangnam Sastayanam Hat. Hare Krishna. Okay, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 2, entitled Daksha Curses Lord Shiva. Text number 34. Te pi viśva-sṛjaḥ satram sahasra-parivatsarān saṁvidhāya maheṣvāsa yatrejya ṛṣabho hariḥ Te pi viśva-sṛjaḥ satram Te pi viśva-sṛjaḥ satram sahasra-parivatsarān sahasra-parivatsarān saṁvidhāya maheṣvāsa saṁvidhāya maheṣvāsa yatrejya ṛṣabho hariḥ yatrejya ṛṣabho hariḥ te pi viśva-sṛjaḥ satram sahasra-parivatsarān saṁvidhāya maheṣvāsa yatrejya ṛṣabho hariḥ. Deity viśva-sṛjaḥ satraṁ sahasra-parivatsarān saṁvidhāya maheṣvāsa yatrejya ṛṣabho hariḥ. Deity viśva-sṛjaḥ satraṁ viśva-sṛjaḥ satraṁ sahasra-parivatsarān saṁvidhāya maheṣvāsa yatrejya ṛṣabho hariḥ. Deity viśva-sṛjaḥ satraṁ parivatsarān saṁvidhāya maheṣvāsa yatrejya ṛṣabho hariḥ. Ladies, Deity viśva-sṛjaḥ satraṁ Take those api even viśva-sṛjaḥ progenitors of the universal population, satram the sacrifice, sahasra 1,000, pavita sharam years, saṁvidhāya performing, maheṣvāsa o Vidura, yatra in which, ijyaḥ to be worshipped, ṛṣabhaḥ the presiding deity of all demigods, hariḥ Hari. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. The sage Maitreya continued, O Vidura, all the progenitors of the universal population thus executed a sacrifice for thousands of years. For sacrifice is the best way to worship the Supreme Lord Hari, the Personality of Godhead. Please repeat. The sage Maitreya continued, O Vidura, all the progenitors of the universal population thus executed a sacrifice for thousands of years. For sacrifice is the best way to worship the Supreme Lord Hari, the Personality of Godhead. Purport. It is clearly stated here that these stalwart personalities who generate the entire population of the world are interested in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead by offering sacrifices. The Lord also says in Bhagavad-gītā 5.29, bhoktāraṁ yajña-tapasām, one may engage in performing sacrifices and severe austerities for perfection, but they are all meant to satisfy the Supreme Lord. If such activities are performed for personal satisfaction, one is involved in pāṣaṇḍa, or atheism. But when they are performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, one is following the Vedic principle. All the assembled sages performed sacrifices for 1,000 years. Om jnana-timidam dasya gnāna-anjana shalakaya chakshurmilitam nina tasmai Sri Gurave namaha. Vakam gurudeva achalam pangam langaya degamir vidamande siguram dinatara. Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So here we're listening to a child. No, we're listening from who? Maitreya Rishi. Maitreya Rishi, he's speaking here. Who's he speaking to? Vidura. But he's addressing all of us as well. We can, of course, take all of these wonderful instructions that are being given in the Bhagavatam as instructions to ourselves as well. It's not going to work. Thank you. Welcome to sit here and listen if he will listen also. The importance of sacrifice. We've heard this many a time because the Krishna consciousness movement emphasizes the supreme sacrifice in this age. Kali Yuga Yuga Dharma Namira Prachar. And that is the chanting of the holy name, the most important sacrifice. Here the sages are, Prabhupada is commenting, that they are also following the recommendations of the Vedic Shastras. Bhagavad-gītā tells us, yajña-tapasām yatra lokayam karma bandhana, that sacrifice has to be performed, otherwise, what? We're bound. People talk about being free, right? There's so much conversation and movements and literature and protests about being free, but really what is freedom? According to the Vedic literatures, freedom is to become freed from the bondage of repeated birth and death caused by our activities. According to how we act, that's where one ends up, right? You're acting in so many ways, and whatever your thoughts are at the end of life, Krishna says, yam yam bhapi smaran bhavam. What is that? Yam yam bhapi smaran bhavam. Tyajanti anti kalevaram. Tam tam ivaiti konteya. Wherever, whatever your thoughts are at the end of life, what to speak of throughout the life, but that, of course, creates that thought at the end of life, so that in turn determines where we end up. So sacrifice has to be performed. And as Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā, that even what your even the simplest things that you do, even the simple act of eating, those are meant as a sacrifice, as an offering. Otherwise, one is incurring reaction and causing in turn a bondage to this material world, which is not very progressive. Sometimes we talk about progressiveness in society. People want to live in a progressive way, or in a progressive country, or a government, or community. But real progress means to, it's not by movement. There's a saying that a progress is not determined necessarily by motion. The example is given of a rocker. A rocker is moving up and down, but that motion doesn't mean that you're making progress, right? The rocker is sitting there. It may be moving, but it doesn't mean that you're making necessarily any progress. So real sacrifice, real progressive living means to be engaged in activities which are meant to satisfy the personality of Godhead, as shown here by the progenitors of the universal population, who were, as Prabhupada points out here, stalwart personalities. They weren't just ordinary personalities, that they're able to perform yajña for thousands of years. We can't imagine. Sometimes when we have our Gita yajña out here, which we're going to be doing in a few weeks, we sit there for a few hours, 3-4 hours, sometimes a little bit longer. And by the end of that time period, everyone is totally exhausted. We're ready to go and eat, or we're ready to go and take rest or whatever. But here we're seeing that the stalwart personalities, such advanced souls, were engaged in sacrifice for thousands of years. Therefore, sacrifice should never be given up, right? Yajña-tapasām, Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā, natyajam karyam eva tat, that one should engage in yajñas and should engage in those activities to become ultimately freed. Paninani, what is that? Pavanani manishinam. That it's meant to ultimately free one from the reactions to our activities, to our past lives. Here we're hearing how the sages were engaged in sacrifice. And the Bhagavatam tells us that there are different types of sacrifice. There's the pavritti marg and there's the nivritti marg. We can engage in activities which are meant to further our material life, pavritti marg, and everyone is interested in, at least in the material world, most people are interested in that kind of progress. Pavritti marg, how to become more comfortable, how to become more famous, how to become more satisfied in terms of sense gratification. And then there's nivritti marg, which is meant to detach one from the material cycle. And this was the so again, one should not confuse motion with progress, because again, the movement of the rocker doesn't necessarily mean any progression. Instead, one should consider, how are we living in a progressive way, meaning that how is one becoming more detached from the material cycle. And that was the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Vairagya Vijnanija Bhakti Yoga, shikshartam ekapurusha purana. His mission was to teach real progressive living, how to become detached from the material cycle, how not to become entangled in the pavritti marg of living, where one is simply working for no real purpose. There's no real satisfaction. Pravrittir esha bhutanam nivrittistu mahapala. The Manu Samhita tells us that the greatest treasure is to be had on the path of detachment. The path of material life, pavritti marg, is looking for some kind of treasure, some kind of wealth, but that sort of wealth is not satisfactory, and we all have practical experience of that. That one may come to a very comfortable position in life when all of a sudden things change. There's no certainty in the material world. Of course, we're constantly looking and hoping that something will happen. But the missing element is that element of bhakti. Bhagavad bhakti hinasya jati shastram javastapa. That the activities, whether it be knowledge, karma gyan, yoga, all these activities, if they're devoid of bhakti, those activities are mandaram lokaranjanam. They're simply considered decorations for a dead body. We can, just like when you go to a funeral, and sometimes you see how they make very elaborate arrangements, and they so many flowers and this thing and that thing, and there's all kinds of celebrations or appreciations, but the fact is that it's a dead body, and it's simply glorification of something which is not a reality. So without the element of bhakti, whatever austerities, whatever work, or whatever knowledge that one may acquire in life, it's simply it's a waste. It's a decoration for a dead body. Lord Brahma explains Shreya Shritim Bhakti Mutasya Me Mibho Tishantiye Kevala Bodhaye Labdaye, that the process of bhakti is the best process. And these other activities that we may engage in throughout life, they're inadequate. They're not, what to speak, they're not very pleasantly performed. Here the sages are being glorified for their sacrifice of 1,000 years, for thousands of years. So how can you do something in that on that level without feeling and experiencing some satisfaction? So there has to be some substance to it. Otherwise, again, it's not enough just to work hard or try to become established in the material world. it's not that is not the qualification, but bhakti is the qualification. There's a saying that when a clown moves to a palace, he doesn't become a king. Instead, the palace becomes a circus. And that is the fact in material world, in the material world, that so many clowns are thinking themselves to be very qualified and kingly leaders, etc. And they may surround themselves with various opulences, gold this, gold that, and gold crowns included, and surround themselves with so many sycophants whose only purpose is to glorify that clown. But that palace, it doesn't make a qualification for that individual. Instead, it becomes a circus. So the alternative is to be engaged in the process of devotional service, the process of bhakti, where a worship of the Lord is considered the goal of life. And when one is on that level, then there's no need for austerities, right? What is that? Arudati yadi yajña-tapasām tata kim. It's the Shastras explain that if the element of worshiping Krishna is not the goal of life, then whatever austerities and penances you're performing are simply a waste of time. And that is the case in modern society. That we're trying to become qualified and established in so many different ways, but because the worship of the Lord is not the primary element, it's simply a waste of time. Decorations for a dead body. It's like Lord Brahma gives the example of an empty husk of wheat. You can beat it as much as you like, but if there's no grain in it, it's simply the only benefit is, or the only result of it is the trouble that you've gone through to achieve that, or to try to make something happen. So, unfortunately though, the general mass of people, as Prahlad Maharaj describes, the general mass of people don't understand this. They don't understand it, they can't see it, because they're so enamored by material life and sense gratification. Pashanapina pashyati, even they're experienced, even they see it, they still don't see it. It's not that the organ of the eye is not functioning. It may be looking, it may be seen, but you actually don't see. Just like sometimes the materialist may consider the process of bhakti to be just any ordinary activity, but actually they don't have the vision to see how important everything is that goes on in a devotional life, whether it be chanting or reading or serving, even the process of remembering. These are not mundane activities. They have great value. They're not. It's not wasted labor, but instead it's enlivening. Just like here, these stalwart personalities were able to engage in such a yajña because they were inspired. If such activities are performed for personal sense gratification, one is involved in atheism. Or when they are performed for satisfaction But when they are performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, one is following the Vedic principles. So this is a very nice instruction that our duty is to engage in austerities for the satisfaction of Krishna. And the supreme austerity we know, as taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we'll end there. Are there any questions or comments? Yes. Shamchandra Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you for the nice class, Prabhu. So you're explaining about pravritti marga and nivritti marga, right? So those who are on the materialistic platform, they follow the pravritti, and then who wants liberation, they take on the nivritti path. So, and in the Vedas, they deal with both. Like all the karma kanda section is mostly dealing with the pravritti marga, right? There are like ritualistic ceremonies. You have any material desire, you do this ritualistic ceremony, you fulfill the desire. It's pravritti marga. And there are some sections on nivritti marga. Basically, most of them are like Upanishads or something which dealing with the Supreme Brahman, right? That is called of nivritti marga. So now for a devotee, for example, a devotee, let's say that a devotee wants to get married, right? I mean, and if you look at the whole marriage ceremony, how it happens, and what are the set rules and regulations, actually that is not from the nivritti, that's not from Upanishad, that is from the karma kanda section, right? So now does it mean that a devotee, when he wants to follow nivritti marga, does he have a separate guidelines or things for him to follow, to qualify to be a nivritti marga? I don't know if I'm making it clear. I'll give an example. For example, when a devotee gets married, right? I mean, obvious thing is that, he is expected to produce children, right? But sometimes people can see that, oh, you know what, this is something like a materialistic thing, or this is something which is pravritti.
There's a pravritti tendency there.
Pravritti tendency. Or sometimes some others may say that, you know what, I'm not going to have children. I'm just going to marry but not have children because I want to dedicate my life more in, devotional service. It's kind of a mixture of pravritti and nivritti, and sometimes it can get confusing actually, because the Upanishad doesn't talk about marriage life, because Upanishad is something when you take sannyas, it doesn't really talk about varnashrama principles or nothing like that. It only talks about the transcendental knowledge, which is the knowledge about Brahman. So that's where I see sometimes things get confusing between pravritti marga and nivritti marga, especially when on the path of bhakti yoga, because in bhakti you're not necessarily taking sannyas immediately, you're still practicing spiritual life in the material platform. So how do you reconcile and understand these things?
Well, that's why you have Guru Sadhu and Shastra, Guru Sadhu Shastra. They're meant to help us reconcile those kinds of questions, because it seems to be some little tendency there for pravritti marg, but to facilitate that, you have the nivritti marg instructions alongside that. Pancha sordambanam brajat, right? The Shastras tell us that at a certain point you need to give all that up. You need to detach yourself from that. So there may be some seeming concession, but ultimately the instruction is to detach yourself from those things, that kind of life or those connections. And that's what the sadhus and the shastras and gurus are there for, to help us understand that. That would be my answer. Maharaj, if you could please comment.
One who gives up the results of his work and works as he's obligated is the renouncer of life, not he who lights no fire and performs no sacrifice. So the activities of a devotee are not within pravritti marg or nivritti marg. They're transcendental. We can't say that our acharyas, such as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, had fallen into pravritti marg when he married and had Bhakti Siddhanta. But there, as Krishna said, that pravritim cha nivritim cha janana vidu asura dasochim napachaparo nasatyam teshu vidyate. Those who are demoniac, they don't know what's to be done and what's not to be done. Neither cleanliness, nor truthfulness, nor proper behavior is found in them. But that doesn't apply to devotees who are on the path of bhakti.
So it's a matter of consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, we have to follow, if one takes, as Krishna says, Shrayan swadamo vigano paradharmo sunustitat Shredharmo nididam shayak paradharmo bhayavaha. It is better to perform one's own duty imperfectly than to follow someone else's duty. This instruction of the cause of one's own duty is better. To follow someone else's duty is dangerous. So we do have our, as long as we're conditioned, or as long as we're trying to show an example to others, we have to follow the rules and regulations of our vana and ashram. We have to, or the swadharma, the rules and regulations that our spiritual master gives us, or Guru Sadhana Shastra. We're obliged to follow them. Only when we become completely liberated, like Parsaram or others, although he was born as a Brahmana, then he acted as a Kshatriya. And on the other hand, we have examples of those who were Kshatriyas. Later on, Vishwamrita Muni, he acted as a Brahmin because they were transcendental. So as long as we're not transcendental, we're obliged to follow the rules and regulations. According to the Swadharma, either we're under the Varna and Ashram, or we're under the orders of the spiritual master. In any case, by doing so, we're liberated. So it's not like pravritti is for sense gratification and nivritti is not for sense gratification. But pravritti can be transcendental and nivritti can be transcendental too. But pravritti could be for sense gratification and nivritti can be for sense gratification too. I mean, think of Hiranyakashipu. He was quite nivritti. It wasn't for love of God, though.
Mataji has a question.
Thank you for the wonderful lecture, Prabhu. I was just thinking, isn't this a little bit preaching to the choir here, right? Because 90% of people here are devotees who have, prioritized this over the material world, right? So
choir needs to hear it too.
Right, but so my question is, how do you bring that into the life of someone who's already decided to be here in the temple and prioritize this over material pursuits? I don't think anyone here is, in a huge, well, I don't know, I can't speak to them, but
yeah, exactly.
Whatever, clown, circus in a mansion, I don't think that anyone in this room fits that description. I think we already kind of get that concept. And so I really like the point of just bringing more sensitivity and discernment into, it's more about the consciousness,
yeah.
right, of the behavior of the devotee. whether they're married or, and then there's the guru who is the judge. Do we remember the name of this guru? He's the judge that has like 17 kids. There's a picture of him.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Right, so he is like the ultimate example of like wild bhakti. Like that's a lot of kids, full-blown career. Okay, 9. I don't know why my brain made it
Only
17. 9 is still a lot, but I digress. So I really like that idea, and that makes the practice really applicable to anyone and their daily life, whether they're working as a nurse or working out in the world, or they're working as devotees with the garb and the robes and the clothes. So
Yeah.
just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much. The choir needs to hear it too. Repetition is important in the process of bhakti.
Prabhu, I just have some reflection about the class. These great sages are making a big sacrifice to benefit the whole universe, the entire universe. So what to speak of this planet, what to speak of for the benefit of this country, which has a lot of troubles as far as, political issues. So it seems like since we have the best, according to the Vaishnavas and according to those saintly persons, this is the best knowledge that can benefit the entire universe. And yet we haven't been noticed by the government that I know if there's any, like a representation of Hare Krishna people to come and speak. They don't invite us, but they invite all other, religious groups like the Christians or any other one. So it seems to me that it's going to take maybe a long time before, we actually are starting noticeable and take participation in a large scale. And another thing that I noticed was that when the leaders, like in this case, Daksha, he got into trouble because he couldn't control the ego and anger, so he was setting a bad example for the rest of the people there.
Yeah.
So, yajña-tapasām that the leader has to have that character. So we have this experience here right now in our government. That's
we have
totally
a
discouraged.
lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work that needs to be done. We haven't even scratched the surface. But we can be assured that this process is effective. And we're practical examples of that. We're here trying to practice, and all in our own little way, we're making some advancement. And if Krishna wants, someone in the higher ups social structure may someday appreciate. But if not, at least we're saving ourselves and those who we may come in contact with. We can do our best to save them and save ourselves. And things will run their course. Krishna has a plan, certainly, for this Krishna consciousness to be distributed around the universe. It's already been set in motion. We have an opportunity to be a part of it.
I think it mentions in the purport that after Daksha and Lord Shiva left, the rest of the sages, they continued.
Yeah, they continued
with the yajña. They didn't give it up. So what you're saying is correct. We just carry on.
Yeah, just carry on. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.